about them dogs? Go dogs, go dogs, go dogs, go dogs. Sit. How about them dogs? Go dogs, go dogs, go dogs, go dogs.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into Dog Talk. It is your host, Holden. Glad to have you here for another episode, and quite an episode we have got to get to. Georgia with the win over Auburn this past weekend, 20-10. The craziest football game I have ever watched in my entire life. From start to finish is a tale of two halves. We've had that conversation before. It seems like that was even the title of one of these episodes last year. And that's all you can say about this football game, because crazy and a tale of two halves was exactly what happened in this football game. We're going to get to all of it coming up here in just a second, okay? Lots to dive through. And it's really just a lot to talk about. It's more just a conversation to go, what on earth, more than anything, I think, because overall, the game was what it was, but it's like there was so much more to it than just the game. And that's what this kind of boils down to. But I digress. We're going to talk about the AP poll here in just a second. We're going to run through the AP poll. The only other news that I have that did break was that the Penn State has gotten rid of James Franklin. Why does that sound wrong? Yeah, no, that's right. They got rid of James Franklin after another loss. Crazy to think that just 3 weeks ago, watching Penn State fight with an Oregon team in the overtime, being the number 3 team in the country, I think that they were, and then they lose that football game. They go on to lose to UCLA, followed up by losing this weekend as well to a Northwestern team that, for a team that should be vying to be in the college football playoffs, vying for a potential national championship, based on what they were coming into the season, to now all of a sudden go from top 5 team in the country to unranked and uncoached, as James Franklin has been fired from the university, or Penn State University. So really the only major news I have coming out of that one, at least on that. So crazy stuff. The carousel of football is getting ramped up. We're through 7 weeks of the season, and I mean, this season could not be any wilder already. You got teams that are losing to people they shouldn't. The SEC is doing exactly what I thought it would and eating each other alive as this season has already gotten started, and it's going to do nothing but continue doing that. We've got great football that's being played all over. We've got some subpar football that's being played all over. But we got a lot of football left, and I'm fired up about that. Let's look at the AP poll real quick before we run into all this Auburn conversation that we're going to have here in just a second. Ohio State at top. Really the only team so far through the season that hasn't really had this struggle game, or they've kind of just solidified themselves as the top team in the country. Miami has something to say for it there at second, and Indiana now has something to say for it there at third. Indiana's the real deal. After this week, seeing what they did in their game, which we're going to talk about at the end of this episode, they have truly, genuinely impressed me at 6-0 on the season, moving up to number 3, and rightfully so. Texas A&M jumps up to 4th. Ole Miss falls down 1 spot to 5th. They're both undefeated, but they just kind of swapped spots there after this past weekend. Ole Miss kind of struggling in some ways. Again, we'll kind of talk about other games around the country at the end of the season, the end of this episode. And then we get Alabama there. Let's see. We got Alabama down there at the 6th spot. Sorry. Texas Tech at 7. Then we have Oregon at 8, only falling 5 spots after that loss this weekend to Indiana. And then you have Georgia coming in the 9 spot, bumping up 1 spot there. LSU at 10, Tennessee at 11, Georgia Tech at 12, Notre Dame 13, slowly squeaking their way back up there. The only 4-2 team that high up on the ranking, 2-loss team all the way up to 13th. Oklahoma at 14, BYU 15, Missouri 16, Vandy 17, Virginia 18, South Florida 19, USC back into the top 25 again at 20, and Texas also back into the top 25 at 21. The only 2-loss teams in the rankings are 21, Texas, and then Notre Dame there. Oh, sorry, I've got a few more I need to go through. Memphis 22, Utah 23, Cincinnati 24, and Nebraska 25. But Texas and Notre Dame are the only 2 teams who have 2 losses that are in this category up in the top 25. Again, we kind of talked about preseason, some thoughts. Texas is one that I thought was going to be a lot better this year. Tough team to beat, probably the only loss Georgia has at home, and that's so far not looking to be necessarily that case. That game still has to happen, so I'm not going to say that won't happen. But all of a sudden, Texas doesn't look like the team that everybody thought they did. All season, starting things off, I've said that I thought Penn State was overrated, and that's definitely proved to be true after this. And then the other team was LSU, which they have since fallen, but they're only one spot behind us. So they're kind of sticking around there. But we'll see what happens as the season kind of runs along. Again, we got a lot of football left to play. We talk about that halfway point. We are necessarily there. But when you talk about bowl season and then now this expanded playoffs, I mean, we're adding so much more time onto the backside of the season. So we still got a lot of football to play. Long way to go. Long way to go before this thing wraps up. So that's kind of the news and notes that I have on it. Into the injury front, we knew Ernest Green would potentially be in this game, as well as Monroe Freeling. Ernest Green did not play in this game. Monroe did play a little bit here and there. Michael Morris also battled through a lot of toughness. Come to find out into the game, it seems like Chauncey Bowens, he was having some issues, I guess. I don't know if issues is really the thing. He was just a little beat up, and I think everybody on this team is. That's really all I had on the injury front, but then we dive into things. The conversation that I had at the start of this thing, the thing that I wanted to make known was just the similarities of, one, this football team, but I really wanted to have and show the similarities of these quarterbacks. I talked numbers with you guys before this game. We ran through all the numbers, all the ins and outs of these two quarterbacks between throwing the football, rushing the football, all the things, right? Numbers fairly similar in a lot of ways. And we leave this football game, and I don't feel a lot different about it, to be honest with you. The biggest glaring difference I see in these two football players right here, here's what it is. Gunnar Stockton is the absolute toughest dude, not toughest quarterback in the SEC. He's the toughest quarterback in the whole country. The whole country, because the licks that he takes and took in this game, but also the licks that he gives to other players and just gets back up like, all right, here we go. We got to go again. Next play. Like it's nothing. There's times, you see him kind of shake it off or what have you, but he gets right back in there and he's competing again the next play. That is the toughest dude I've ever seen playing a quarterback, potentially ever, to be honest with you. There's been some tough dudes that have been back there. Don't get me wrong. Tim Tebow is one of the guys, too, that I look at that it's like that's a tough dude. And Gunnar Stockton's that every bit of that same toughness. And it's awesome to see, but it's also, there's times where I'm like, man, how many times can he take these licks over and over and over again and get back up? Not necessarily next week, but 3, 4, 5 weeks down the road as this season rolls on. Those little hits here and there, and especially the big ones, they stack up. They stack up over time. So hopefully in these, I'm sure he's getting plenty of ice baths in these off days, so to speak. Off days, no days an off day, right? But in the days that he's not playing games, I'm sure he's doing a lot trying to keep himself as healthy as he possibly can be. But this was a tale of the quarterbacks again. When I looked at these similarities between these quarterbacks, again, I was like, kind of surprising. Didn't really expect that to be the comparison. But then as I look at the numbers immediately following this football game, they're very similar. They're not terribly similar numbers wise, but they're very similar because the leading passer obviously was Gunnar, and it was obviously Jackson Arnold. The leading rusher for both of these football teams was the quarterbacks. So that's kind of where I landed on the fact that it's crazy that these two guys played very similar in this game. They used their legs when they needed to. They made extended plays, but they also used their legs in a fashion that was meant to be used. Quarterback calls, quarterback runs. We talk about those every so often here, and that was, again, the same case here. Gunnar throws at 217, Arnold throws at 137. Gunnar rushes at 26, Arnold rushes at 55. And those are your leading rushers and your leading quarterbacks in the game. So it's kind of crazy that we kind of talked about those similarities pre-game, and then we got into the game, and then following it, you see they end up leading their categories in not only passing but also rushing, which leads me to my next part of this game, which was the rushing side of things. I got to give credit here to Auburn in a little way, just the fact that they did a very good job of running the football in this game. Georgia did not necessarily do a very good job of running the football in this game, and Usually that's a completely different story. If I just told you right off the rip, that one of these teams is going to get 140 rushing yards in this game, who would you think it would be? I love doing these comparisons, and honestly, out of a bias kind of mindset, I would say Georgia's probably the team that got 140 yards compared to that of a 79, which Georgia actually did get. Crazy number here, though. 140 yards for Alabama. Good Lord, Auburn is what they end up netting in this game. Only one touchdown, that being the Jackson Arnold rush in early in this game. Georgia, on the other hand, gets 2 touchdowns on the ground with their 90 or 79 total yards. That's all they got. But they got the 2 touchdowns. Here's the number that's real glaring. It's 2.5 yards per carry is basically what we averaged on the ground, whereas they were averaging right at 4. They're at the 3.9 mark. So they rushed the ball very effectively, Auburn did. That was one of the things I was slightly concerned coming into this game. Didn't really think that was going to be the deal because coming into this game, Georgia's giving up 82 rushing yards. They're giving up 88. So pretty even on that as far as the rushing category goes. But it was very difficult to run this football in this game. Very difficult. On the opposite side, though, Georgia did fairly well throwing the football. Again, Gunner goes 24, 37, 217 on the night. Does get sacked a couple of times. We did get to Jackson Arnold once. Probably should have a couple more times, but I digress. Now let's dive into kind of how this football game happened, because this was the thing. When I just look, again, we talk about the keys every week, every game. We talk about what the keys are going to be. And I know it's kind of skipping forward the way I generally do things, but this is how I generally do them. By the time I get down to the bottom, we talk about the keys. Well, I'm going to tell you what I thought the keys of this game should be up front. And these I guess should be quoted as keys to the game to win easily, because very seldom do you have a key to a game that if you fail all 3 or 4 or 5 of these keys, do you win a football game? But Georgia won this game. Georgia won this game by 2 possessions at that. And that was win third downs. Did Georgia do that? No, they didn't. Establish the run game. Did Georgia do that? No, they didn't. And the last and not necessarily least one was strike early and often, get this crowd out of there. Did Georgia do that? No, they didn't. To start this football game, to start it, Georgia didn't get it first. Auburn got it first. Auburn, 14 plays, 75 yards. They ate up 7 minutes and 21 seconds. Why do I like keeping up with time of possession? Well, you're going to see here in just a minute why I like keeping up with time of possession, because of how crazy what was about to happen would happen. Okay? Auburn on that drive, 7 minutes, 21 seconds, 14 plays, 75 yards. Here's the deal. They also started that drive either 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 on third downs. So our defense was not stopping them. And when they drove those 14 plays, 75 yards, I went, great. This looks identical to what Alabama did against us. And they got these third downs to start it off too and ripped right down the field on us. Boom. They score. Okay. Let's see if we can't get an answer here, Georgia. Get the ball back. 6 plays, 14 yards, 3:21 is what we take off the clock. 14 yards. All we get off of those 6 plays. Okay. We end up punting it on that one. They get the ball back. Here we go. They go 12. They get the ball on the 23-yard. They're on 23. They go 12 plays, 70 yards for 5.5 minutes, basically. 5 minutes, 32 seconds. So, again, they've taken a lot of clock off. They don't get a touchdown. We hold them out in the end zone. They kick a field goal. Okay. They're up 10-0. We're feeling okay at this point. All right, let's get the ball back. Things are going to be okay. We're going to make something happen. We get the ball back on our 25, obviously off the kickoff. We go 3 plays, 1 yard is all we do. 3 and out, minute and 22 seconds, punt it back to them. At this point, I'm going, things aren't looking good, because also on that last drive, even though we held them to a field goal, I think Auburn at that time was 4 for 6, They were 5 for 5, 6 for 7 maybe on third downs on that next drive. So they were absolutely doing the same thing Alabama did to our defense at the start of this game. And I have this question every time. I have it every time. What is the deal? Why is it that we keep starting these games the way we do? I don't have the answer for it. I honestly don't. We make adjustments, and you're going to see these adjustments play out really quick and in great fashion here in just a minute. Because don't get me wrong, I do believe that there are teams that can scheme enough around you to make things interesting for your defense to start a game. But you have a coach who is fully defensive minded, and he has the guys under him that he's taught in that same way. You know, we got to learn these things. But for whatever reason, this season has been different. Last year, it was just slow starts, especially offensively. Now, this year is not necessarily much different than that, but we've had games where offensively we look good. And it may take a little while before that offense gets going, but either way. Defensively, though, it's so much different because generally our defense is not the thing we have the question about. For the last 10 years, especially since Kirby got there, the defense has been something that every year seems to improve, and you might have a lull or a slight difference in a defense one year to the next, but for the most part, you have a dominant defense, whereas this year, I'm not saying it's not dominant, but I'm not saying it's dominant because for whatever reason, we come into these football games, in my opinion, unprepared defensively because there's no reason for this. That's 2 drives for them. They at this point have ran 26 plays. They have gotten 145 yards so far, and they've had the ball for well over 10, 11, 12 minutes in this game. They've had the ball for a long time at this point, and Georgia has only had the ball for like 4 minutes and hadn't done anything with it. So, hey, they scored. They get the field goal. Let's get the ball back. Let's see what happens. 3 and out. We get 5 yards. 5 yards, a minute and 57 seconds. Okay. Not a lot of good stuff happening there. So far, up until this point of the football game, Georgia has had the ball 3 times. We've ran 12 plays. We've ran 12 plays for 20 yards in this football game. That's all that Georgia has done the first 3 possessions of the football game. And at this point in time, when we give the ball back to them on this punt, there's 9 minutes and 27 seconds left before the half. Okay. Auburn, on the other hand, again, they've been doing things fairly well. Again, this was the only time Georgia got them to go the 3 and out there was when they end up punting it to us just before this, when they go 3 plays, 4 yards, and 54 seconds, but they give the ball back to us. That's when we go, same thing, 3 and out on our second time. So first 3 times we have the ball, we punt it all 3 times. The first 3 times they have it, they get a touchdown, field goal, punt it. The next time they get it, this is the most important time for Georgia in this one. But nonetheless, what did they do when they get the ball on their own 20 at 9 minutes and 20 seconds? They drive for 7 minutes and 55 seconds, 15 plays, 79 yards to the 1 yard line. And what's going to be infamous for a long time in this rivalry is the fumble at the 1 yard line. You can ask me the question as many times as you want to, and I do not have the 1,000% correct answer for you in this. I genuinely don't, because I can see where so many people look at this and they go, oh, it looks like the ball crossed the plane. But I can also tell you this, there are a lot of times when those camera angles are not as perfect as you think they are. So you think it's looking perfectly down the line, as perfect as it possibly can be. And I'm telling you, I don't think that's the case. And in the other side of it, I also understand and know a lot of what you're looking at is not what you think you're looking at, because you think you're looking at the end of a football, but you're actually looking at somebody's fist punching that football out. Because even in some of the other replays that I've seen, this ball seems to be moving before it ever even reaches that part of the plane, because not one fist, but 2 fists go in there and knock the ball out. Okay. So obviously at this point in time, Auburn again has driven down the field on Georgia's defense. Georgia still, up until this point, and again, this is at the minute and 32 second left before the half, those adjustments have not been made efficiently. Okay. The drive before it felt like that happened when they go 3 and out, only 4 yards. It's like, all right, there's the adjustment. We're going to get the ball back with 11 and a half minutes before the half. We're going to drive. We're going to score. That didn't happen. We go 3 and out. They get the ball back, and they turn it back on again, and they go right down the field. Right down the field again, 15 plays, 79 yards, and they're on the 1 yard line trying to make this a 17-0 football game before the half. So we punch it out. Here's the problem. The problem is this. Obviously, when the fumble happens, we get a guy. Yeah, so it's number 31, Kyron Jones. He's the one that actually ends up getting the fumble. Here's the problem. Because none of the referees could see the ball, the entire time they're thinking that the ball is somehow in the bottom of this pile. Here's my problem is this. When they all come to blow the play dead, and on the field they call a fumble, because clearly a Georgia player has it, and not only is he running the other direction, he's smart enough to run all the way to the end zone. Because if this play doesn't get called dead or whatever happens, that ball's in the end zone, okay? So here's my problem is they're all running forward. They're blowing the whistle. The play is dead. Georgia has the football, but yet it's almost like they thought that somehow Jackson Arnold had it and was underneath the pile and they needed to find the football. But yet our man's 99 yards away in the end zone with the ball in his hand. So here's my problem is if it's not a touchdown for Auburn, which is what you would think it would be considering they were blowing the play dead the way that they were, while our guys going the whole opposite direction scoring, they rule it a fumble on the field, which again to me is why is this play being blown dead at all? Why is it being blown dead? So on replay, obviously, they have to make the controversial call, whatever that be, which I will say this, ACC, they've got it figured out because we get to listen in what they're saying. It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. We know what's happening. Hey, I'd love to see that happen with the SEC. Let's take a page out of the ACC book on that, which is hard to say and something I never thought I would say, but I'd like to see that taken out of somebody's page because that's a pretty cool way to get to watch the replay there. But inevitably, they look at it, they go, okay, it's definitely not a touchdown. Ball doesn't cross the plane because it's getting punched out. It's a fumble. Now the problem lies this, that you have blown a play dead because the replay also reveals he's not down. He's not down. So when it reveals that he's not down and now you know that he's ran 99 yards to the other end zone and we've scored a touchdown, on that replay, you can't overturn the fact that you already blew a whistle and called the play dead, even though that shouldn't happen either because now instead of us not only getting the fumble and running down the field and scoring a touchdown, but now you're going to put us on the 1 yard line because of a dead ball play that you blew a whistle on that shouldn't have been blown. So this whole thing blows up for both teams, to be honest with you, because obviously this is where Auburn absolutely implodes. Auburn and Hugh Freeze absolutely implode from this point forward, and the game is completely changed and flipped on its head entirely. And we're going to run through those numbers, and you're going to see just how much the entirely of that was. And it's unbelievable, to be honest with you. But again, the problem lies that now Georgia's on a 1 yard line instead of having just scored a touchdown. And instead of this thing going 17-0, it should be 10-7, but instead it's 10-0. There's a minute and a half left in the game, basically, or the half, and we've got to figure out how to drive the ball. What is that? 99 yards, obviously, to the other side of the field. Okay? So that doesn't happen. We don't drive it 99 yards and get a touchdown, but we do drive it 12 plays, 88 yards. And here's the mind blower for you. Okay? Let me do a comparison for you real quick. Auburn earlier in the drive, or earlier in the game, 14 plays, 75 yards, 7 minutes, 21 seconds. 12 plays, identical. 70 yards, not quite identical. 5 minutes, 32 seconds. They would also have that last drive before that, 15 plays, 79 yards, 7:55. Boy, Georgia's going to go 12 plays, 88 seconds in a minute and 20, basically a minute and 20 seconds. A minute and 19 seconds. That's how quickly Georgia drove down the field to the 11-yard line where they kicked the field goal with 13 seconds left. Put points on the board, 10-3 there at the half. That's how the half ends, with the exception that Auburn gets the ball, they lose a yard on one play, and that ends the half there. So we go to half, 10-3. Again, right now Georgia's getting whipped. Previous to that fumble, like I told you guys, Georgia had 20 yards on 12 plays before they knocked the fumble out. Okay, and then they get the 12-play, 88-yard drive. At this point, Georgia ends up with 108 yards in the first half just because of that. Auburn, on the flip side of that, including that fumble drive, gets 227 total yards in the first half. So getting outgained a lot, only down by a touchdown going into the half. But again, like I told you guys, everything flipped on its head. Whatever happened in that locker room for Georgia at the half was a good pep talk that would truly turn things around. Whatever happened in the room for Auburn, I don't know what that was, whether it's complaining, fussing about this, that, or the other, giving your players the ability to say, hey, that sucks, the refs were against us and that, and allowing them to just believe it's the refs' fault instead of saying, hey, we got to take it out of their hands. We can't let this ball go back to Georgia's hands. We also can't let the refs do this. We have to take the ball into our own hands and do what we need to do to win this football game moving forward. And that didn't happen. Auburn didn't do that in the second half. Auburn gave up in the second half and allowed Georgia to get back in this football game and take over in the second half. And the crazy part about it is it didn't just happen immediately coming out of the half because Georgia gets the ball back when they come out of the half. Okay? They go 8 plays, 29 yards in 3 minutes and 2 seconds, and they give it up on downs on Auburn's 46-yard line. We go for it on fourth down. We don't get it. They get it back just like that. Momentum's trying to shift Georgia's way, and it doesn't. Auburn gets the ball. But what does Auburn do? They turn around and do basically the same thing. They go 5 plays, 17 yards to Georgia's 37. They go for it on fourth. They don't get it in 2 minutes and 48 seconds. And then, no pun intended, but the tide does shift in this game. I know it's not Alabama, but still, we're playing at Auburn. Georgia gets it on their 37, on their own 37. They drive 5 plays, 63 yards in 1 minute and 47 seconds to score a touchdown. Now it's a tie football game just like that. We give it to Auburn. They go 3 and out, lose 2 yards in that drive. They punt it. Okay, so all of a sudden, Auburn, as we're clearing or getting close to the end of the third quarter in here, Auburn only has 15 yards on this half. Now Georgia has turned it up a notch and has got right at 100 yards, basically. Actually has right at 100 yards on this. We get the ball back. Off of this, we go 9 plays, 25 yards, 4 minutes, 20 seconds. We kick a field goal. We take our first lead of the game, right? We're up. Auburn gets the ball back. What do? 3 and out. 6 yards is all they get, 1 minute and 18 seconds. So now all of a sudden, everything is really stopped for Auburn. In the third quarter there, 17, they lose 2, they got 15, they got 11 total yards in the third quarter is that of an Auburn team. Whereas Georgia was kind of racking it up. We get the ball back, we go 8 plays, 18 yards, 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Kick the field goal, don't make it. So again, Auburn still has a chance here if they would ever wake up, but they never would wake up. They wouldn't wake up from this football game after that. They would get the ball back. They would go 3 and out. Yet again, they would punt the ball to Georgia in this one. Georgia would get it back, go 16 plays, 78 yards, 8 minutes, 45 seconds. The death knell trot is what it felt like for Georgia. Scoring the touchdown there in the fourth quarter with 1 minute and 53 seconds left. Taking that lead up to 20 to 10, not up to 20, but up to 10, making it 20 to 10 at that point. Auburn gets the ball back, has a chance there with 1 minute and 53 seconds to try to do something. 9 plays, 25 yards in a minute, and they go for it on fourth and can't get it. So they end the second half. Again, tell of two sides. 227 is what they had in the first half. Georgia had 108 yards after that 88-yard drive right before the half. But again, before that, they were looking at 20 yards. That's unbelievable. And then Georgia turns it around, gets 213 yards in the second half compared to that of a 50 yards was it for Auburn. And if you take the last drive that Auburn had there with 1 minute and 53 seconds left, having the ball for exactly a minute, the 9 plays, 25 yards that they had, Auburn only got 25 yards in the second half. So, yes, Georgia made the adjustment. They made it in the second half. And they made things happen to where they needed to make things happen. But again, I still have the question of why is it taking later into a football game for that to happen? Georgia dominated. This is the second shutout that Georgia has had on the team in a second half this season, one of which was Alabama, the other now of which was Auburn. I'm trying to remember, Kentucky may have also been a shutout in another part of that, but I could be incorrect on that, so don't hold me to that. But a major tale of two halves in this football game. Honestly, I mean, unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. I should have pulled the stats as far as third down efficiency in the first half and the second half because Georgia was not good offensively in the first half and Auburn was good. And then the second half, that kind of flipped. But Georgia still did not end up good on third down efficiency of the game. They go 5 for 14, not very good again. 35.7%, not very good compared to Auburn's 8 for 17. Most of all of those came in the first half, if not just about all of them, 47%. This was the crazy other number. First half of the game, Georgia has the ball for 8 minutes and 5 seconds. Again, the big drive is what kind of drove them there, that 12-play, 88-yard drive, but that only took 1 minute and 19 seconds. So Georgia only had the ball 8 minutes, 5 seconds compared to 21 minutes and 55 seconds for Auburn in the first half. That was the chance for Auburn to put their foot on there, put the foot on the neck, and break it. And that fumble at the 1-yard line broke Auburn's neck instead. Did the complete opposite. Georgia in the second half had the ball much longer, 22 minutes and 7 seconds compared to 7 minutes and 53 seconds. And that's when Georgia did put the foot on Auburn's throat there and put that ball game away. A couple of the big numbers for you here, just to kind of give you an idea of what was going on in this game. Georgia, 21 first downs compared to Auburn, 4 of those. That's a number I would not have thought. 4 of the first downs in this game came by way of the ground for Georgia, 13 of which came through the air. 4 of which came by way of penalty. Penalties was a mess. 6 for 60 for Georgia, 11 for 103 for Auburn, which I believe is a first since 2018 that a team had 3 consecutive 10-plus penalty games on the season. Georgia 217 through the air, 137 for Auburn. On the ground, Auburn 140 compared to Georgia's 79. Total offensive yards, Georgia 296, Auburn 277. Georgia ran 69 plays compared to that of 67 with Auburn. Those were the biggest numbers. 4th down conversions was important for Georgia, 2 of 3. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone, the 2 touchdowns and the 1 field goal. The one that was missed was outside of it again, only got 1 sack on the night. Auburn 1 for 3 on 4th downs. They were 2 for 3 in the red zone. Obviously, that fumble happening there at the 1-yard line cost them on that. Your leaders in this game. Gunner again led the charge, 9 rushing attempts. I guess, a couple of these are, one of these is probably going to be considered the one, or actually 2 of these is going to be considered sacks. So he had 35 yards, but nets 26 on it. Josh McCray will be right behind him at 24 yards on 6 carries. Nate Frazier, 10 carries, 24 yards as well. Chauncey Bowens had the 5 yards in this game, 1 touchdown on 4 touches. Again, not a ton of rushing in this. At 31 total rushes. Technically, that's going to be 29 with the 2 sacks. 2 touchdowns on the ground again. Leading receiver in this one, Zachariah Branch, 57 yards on 9 touches. Colby Young, 53 yards on 4. Noah Thomas finally getting a big catch in this one, 30 yards with that 1 catch. Let's see. London Humphreys had 2 catches, 25 yards. Cass Jones, 3 catches, 19 yards. Nate Frazier, 2 catches, 17 yards. Oscar Delt, 2 catches, 9 yards. Lawson Lucky, the 1 catch for 7. And that's the only guys that did get in this as far as getting receptions in this. Dylan Bell did have the 1 pass, which I was going to say, man, this was awesome. If that's a completed pass, it's a big play. Unfortunately, misses on that one. Brett Thorson had 3 punts on the night, looked very good. And then Peyton Woodring, again, I think he was 1 for 1 on his field goals. Perfect in his actually, he was 2 for 3, excuse me. Perfect inside of a good drive. Let's see, he was 29-yarder, good. 53-yarder, good. 45-yarder was the only one that he missed, and then had the 5 kickoffs. So, the game overall is just, I don't know. I tweeted about this that I think this is the first time that the umpires, the refs in it really kind of made a little bit of a difference in this football game. Again, just very, 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 very strange. Very strange. Some of your other leaders in this, C.J. Allen did lead with 10 total tackles in this game. Raylan Wilson behind him at 6. Gabe Harris and Dalen Everett both had 5. C.J. had the sack. He also had the forced fumble in this one. He had 2 tackles for loss total. Janelle Aguero had Janelle and Kristen Miller. They both had shares there, I guess, for tackle for loss. Quintavious Johnson also had a share for a tackle for loss there. A few pass breakups here and there, but that was your main defensive numbers there. But anyways, back to it. Just the conversation on it. Just such a strange game. Strangest game I've ever watched as far as just overall not having a clue what was happening. Like the fact that the first half of this game flipped on its head as much as it did into the second half and turned out the way it did, just still to this day kind of blows my mind. The difference in the football team first half to second half. Offensively was one thing, but defensively was another. Like to go from defensively not being able to get a stop to all of a sudden defensively to being able to stop them every time, basically, was pretty wild. Then obviously getting things clicking offensively. I did hear one thing, and I don't care about the like shouting somebody else out because I like listening and watching what it is that the Film Guy Network over there, Brooks Austin, does. And he mentioned something. He's not going to tell you who the guy was, but he mentioned another guy actually telling him they're going to run out of plays because apparently they're running some new plays out there. I hadn't watched the film breakdown that he usually does every week yet, but that's interesting. I'm sure that might be something that he points out. But if that's the case, if Auburn kind of came in here scheming up some new plays for this and it was effective in the first half, that's great. Maybe they thought they could get up enough to where they could hold on, kind of like Alabama did, and win that football game. And they had the chance to do that, but they ran out of plays apparently and went back to just normal football, which was not good enough to beat a Georgia defense. And then the Georgia offense started to come alive, and that's kind of all this. It's kind of all that she wrote in that one. But Georgia ends up finaling this one 20-10. Again, just very controversial. Obviously, the fumble call is controversial. The fact that they just laid down after that is kind of sad as far as the coaching side of things go for them. I'm just going to say that just kind of the way that it is. Obviously, later into this football game, there were some more controversial calls here and there, some crazy reviews right there before the half that just this was, we talked about this for that Alabama game was Kirby said, they've been pretty quick about, calling down for reviews and all this. And no. From this point on, I will never believe that, no matter who says it, because that was not true. We had 2 plays that we literally were about to get tackled to end the play, and they finally stop and blow the call dead to review something, and that happened twice, and it all happened right there before the half as well. So it was kind of one of those, okay, from now on, if you want to get a call or want them to look at something, you need to give them a second to figure that out. Okay. So that was one side of it. Very, very lopsided on that. And then we also obviously had penalties later into the game. And then the biggest controversy of all of it was the timeout call there from Kirby Smart. And I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we all obviously have seen all the replays. Kirby's calling a timeout, and then he's fussing at the fact that Auburn players are clapping, and you're not allowed to clap anymore on defense. So that was what he was fussing about. Obviously, the problem in it that I've seen and heard is if the commentators in this game don't assume what it is that Kirby is saying down there, I don't think this is nearly blown out of proportion as it was. I really don't. The other problem of it is, even if the commentators didn't say it, we obviously all have an imagination of what it is that he's saying. Because my first initial thought was, hey, he's trying to tell him, no, I was just clapping. And then it showed the replay, and I was like, well, he clearly called timeout. So there's no way that he's trying to go back on that and saying that he's not calling a timeout. He's just clapping. Because from my understanding of it is, and obviously after hearing what Kirby had to say about it is, listen, he called the timeout. He was running to the side to call the timeout to try to get the officials' attention that the guy's clapping, and he told them that pregame that they were doing it, and they never would call the flag for it. So he goes over, he sees that the clock's running down, he believes that we can get the play off, but he wants them to call the penalty for the other team clapping, and they don't do that. So he calls the timeout, and he's telling them he's clapping. I want the penalty to go against them so we can actually get the yardage because the guy's clapping, but he won't do that. And Kirby even said, I didn't need the timeout. And by the way, here's the problem I have with this too. There's so many people saying, I don't trust him. I don't believe in him anymore. That's ridiculous that he would say and do that. First of all, you're not there. You don't understand exactly what it is that's happening because Kirby has even said it. Yes, I called the timeout. I did. But I didn't need the timeout. That doesn't mean that he's saying I didn't necessarily call the timeout and I'm just telling him I was clapping. No, he told him that Auburn was clapping, and that's where the penalty should be coming in, and they weren't calling the penalty. So you can say what you want about that, but here's the deal. So many people want to make the two biggest parts of this game is the fumble and then Kirby timeout clapping over there, okay? At the end of the day, the fumble was a very, very pivotal part of this game because it's a potential 17-0 compared to what would swing to obviously 10-3 before the half. Okay, Auburn still with the lead, but at any point in time in this second half, Auburn could have stepped on the throat and tried to do something about it, and they never did. Okay, so the timeout that Kirby took later in this football game in the fourth quarter was not the difference in the football game. Yes, does Georgia potentially take that delay of game there? Does it back them up a little bit? And maybe they don't get a first down. Potentially, yes, but the game still ends 20-10. Okay, we'll give you the 7 points from that fumble instead of us having a drive from the 1 yard line, which we should have technically had a touchdown off of to make it 10-7. But let's spot you that anyways. Go ahead and keep us that field goal, even though we had to drive the length of the field essentially to get it, and it's still 20-17. You still don't win the football game. Okay. And the timeout did not make the difference in the football game. It didn't. Auburn had not been doing anything offensively in the second half to show me that had that been a delay of game, had Georgia not gotten that first down, that Georgia still wouldn't have won this football game. So why we have to blow it up as much as we do, I don't know. But we are, and we did. And the keys to this game, none of them hit. I predicted it 31-20, didn't hit. Finished at 20-10. And that is all I got to say about the Auburn game. We're going to wrap it up right then and there with that football game. Let's look at some of the other games around the country real quick before we look back at the picks, and then we get out of here. South Florida did win on Friday. Quite a close game at the half. All tied up at 21. I was like, man, this is a good one to watch. Then I look back at the fourth quarter, and South Florida took away with it. 63-36. Get obviously to that Saturday slate. Ohio State over Illinois, 34-16. This was one of those I said that, all right, this is where we get to see what is actually Illinois. Are they a bad team? Can they kind of stick around and play? And honestly, Ohio State pretty much took away with this one quickly. It was 20-3 at the half, 27-10 going into the fourth quarter. They took care of business. It's 34-16 final. But Illinois not going to be that team that wrecks anything in the Big Ten as far as with Ohio State, Indiana, and probably Oregon in this one. Ohio State, really good football team. And then on the other side of that, what is Indiana? Are they the team that's going to be vying for that Big Ten spot? And they are, 30-20 over Oregon. Quite a game. Oregon, I couldn't believe they lost this one at home. I think it was kind of rainy up there. That doesn't matter. Indiana, the real deal this year, probably going to be Indiana and Ohio State at the end of that. They're in the Big Ten trying to fight it out. But we'll see a lot of football to play. Ole Miss, Washington State. This was the one that I kind of scratched my head at. I don't know if this was a look-ahead game. Washington State was coming in this one 3-2. Ole Miss, obviously, number 4 team in the country at 5-0, getting ready to play in this one. And Ole Miss wins it, but it's 24-21. It was not pretty. Not pretty in this game at all. 17-10 at the half, and then again, it was just touchdown. They were right there with each other the entire game. And again, I don't know if that's a look ahead to this week with Georgia, having to travel to Georgia. I'm not really sure. I really don't know. I don't know, because Ole Miss seems like they're a really good football team this year, especially offensively. And this game just kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, to be honest with you. Quarterback-wise, Chambliss looked good. 20 for 29, 253, 2 touchdowns. Running back, 24 carries, 142 yards. Offensively, they look good. Almost seems like you should have more points on the board than that, and maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I didn't watch that game terribly close. I was just surprised that the game ended that close. Florida A&M, we were going to see if Florida could keep the magic going. It was 21-14 at the half, and then still close there going into the fourth quarter, but A&M would blank Florida in the fourth quarter while scoring 10 to pull away, making it 34-17. A&M looking real good in the SEC this year. Oklahoma, Texas, this was the other one where it was like, all right, let's see how this goes. And Texas called back against Oklahoma in this one, 23-6. Oklahoma led 3-0 at the at the end of first, up 6-3. A real Big Ten showdown there at the half, before Texas would score 10 in the third and then 10 more in the fourth. Blanking Oklahoma in the second half, making it 23-6 in the Red River Rivalry. Then you had Alabama, Missouri. Really good game here. Kind of a classic there in Missouri. Missouri, for the first time, I think 19 games, maybe they had a home winning streak there. They had a pretty good streak going that gets snapped by Alabama. Also, this year, 27-24, Alabama does beat Missouri. Texas Tech thumps Kansas. LSU beats South Carolina 20-10. I paid zero attention to that game, I'm going to be honest with you. One game that I did kind of pay attention to was Tennessee and Arkansas. Tennessee does win that one 34-31. This game was pretty well out of hand, and then fourth quarter, 2 touchdowns there for Arkansas, making that one look a lot better, because the last I remember looking at it, it was like 34-17. I was like, all right, well, Tennessee's got this one in the bag, and then I look back and it's 34-31. I was like, wait a minute, what happened? But nonetheless, Tennessee wins that one. Tech over Virginia Tech 35-20. USC absolutely thumping number 15 Michigan 31-13. That's what put them back in the top 25. Notre Dame over NC State 36-7. BYU over Arizona 33-27. Utah absolutely thumping the number 21 team in the country, Arizona State 42-10. Colorado upsetting number 22 Iowa State 24-17, and then Pitt also upsetting number 25 Florida State 34-31. Not a real good look there for old FSU, falling out of the top 25 this week with their third loss on the season. So tough look for them there. The picks I did have on the week was like this: Georgia over Auburn. That one hits. Oklahoma over Texas. That one obviously didn't hit. I did have Tennessee over Arkansas. That one hit. I did have A&M over Florida, so that one did hit. I do go 3-1 on the week, and if you give me just a second, I'm going to look and see exactly what it ended up on the season. Let's see. So we go 3-1. That's going to make us, we were 19-10. So that's going to make us 22-11. looking pretty good on the season. We got a winning record going, and that's going to be all right there. But other than that, I'm pretty much going to get out of here, to be honest with you.
How about them dogs?
Dogs get the win over Auburn. We got a big one coming up this weekend in Athens against the number 4-5 team in the country now in Ole Miss. So big one coming up. Got to get ready for that one. Hope the defense comes in ready to play immediately. We'll catch up with you guys on Thursday and talk about that one. Go Dogs.